There are stories, and then there are overarching stories. Just stay with me for a minute. So what's a story? A story is some murderous piece of trash that just got let out of jail in New York City goes and shoots somebody. That's a story. You know, we could sit and talk about that story. What's an overarching story that encompasses that story? Well, George Soros and the communists have figured out that DA positions are critical, and so they're filling up those positions with pro-crime communists in order to cause more violence and destabilize a society. That's an overarching story. But there is maybe the ultimate overarching story happening right now, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see it everywhere. And that overarching story is this. Western governments, not just America, although that's what we're going to focus on tonight, Western governments turning against their own citizens. That is the overarching story of the world right now, and you see it everywhere. But first, let's discuss the why. Well, remember, we haven't done this in a while. There are three things all of our elites have in common now. The leaders of every one of our institutions, whether it's government or education or entertainment, it doesn't matter what it is. Three things every single one of them have in common as a late stage republic. One, no love of country. Many of them actually hate the country, but none of them wake up and think about America, not like you do. Two, no connection to the real world. They live their entire lives in this bubble, academia, media, whatever. They don't know what it's like. I got an email yesterday from one of my viewers. We talked about it last night. He had to sell his gun to pay the rent. These people have never experienced something like that. And three, and this is the most important part for our purposes tonight. It's really important people understand this. We view our elected representatives as servants, right? Hey, I picked you. You go there and you fight for me, serve me, do what's best for me. But that's not how they view themselves. The elites who run our institutions, including our elected officials, they see themselves as kings and queens. You see, they rule over us. They don't wake up in the morning ever once and have a servant's heart about you or the things you're going through and things like that in your life. Those thoughts never cross their mind. You're one of the peasants, all right? They are the kings and queens. And kings and queens do as they please with the peasants. Maybe the best example of this, maybe the best, was during COVID. We saw this all over the place. And part of me is glad COVID happened because so many people started to wake up to how these people see themselves. Remember Nancy Pelosi? Wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask, you better wear a mask. And then 5 minutes later, Nancy Pelosi, of course, gets caught on camera with no mask. And she's asked about it. And what'd she do? Well, here's what she did.
I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Falling for a setup. She's annoyed she even has to be there. Why do I have to answer questions from the peasants? Of course they have to wear masks. The queen doesn't, but the peasants do. Remember Dr. Birx? Remember when she went on TV and told you to stay away from your family for Thanksgiving?
I'm making the personal sacrifices not to infect my parents and my pregnant daughter. I worry about that because then it gives people the option to say, well, if bars and restaurants are open, then I can have 20 people over for Thanksgiving. And so I don't like it to be any number. I like it to be keep it to your immediate household.
She wrapped up that interview and promptly went and got on a plane and gathered with her extended family for Thanksgiving. Gretchen Whitmer did the same thing. Stay out of Florida. Hopped on a plane, went to Florida. Gavin Newsom did it. You remember, maybe the best example was, remember when you couldn't bury your mom or your dad? Maybe you didn't even get to say goodbye in person. The number of emails I still have, I can't throw them away. I can't bring myself to throw them away. The number of emails I have of people saying, Jesse, I had to say goodbye to my mom over a Zoom call. Jesse, I never got to say goodbye to my husband, not in person. Jesse, we weren't allowed to have a funeral for him. Remember, they weren't allowing normal people to have a funeral. And then John Lewis died, and they all gathered together, shoulder to shoulder, right there. Because, of course, well, you, peasants, you don't get to have a funeral, you and your peasant mom. The kings and queens do, though. Of course, there are different rules for peasants and for rulers. Obviously, the Gavin Newsom French Laundry thing. So let's make this about today. What's happening right now? What's one of the big stories out there right now? Well, Xi Jinping is coming to visit California tomorrow. He's supposed to arrive on Wednesday. And the big story out there right now is that California, the streets of San Francisco that are so full of poop, there's actually, I'm told, I've not downloaded it, I'm told there's actually an app that will track the poop on the streets of San Francisco for you. That's how bad the poop problem is. Human poop, heroin needles and everything. Homeless people everywhere. And they just cleaned it all up for Xi Jinping. And people are starting to raise a fuss because they cleaned it up for Xi Jinping, and Gavin Newsom got up and said this.
Folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true. Anytime you put on an event, by definition, you have people over your house, you're going to clean up the house.
You have people over your house you got to clean up. But here's the truth of it. If our house was dirty at all times and the wife only cleaned up when guests were coming over, I might start to assume she prioritized other people over our family. Thankfully, our house is always clean. Why did they clean up for Xi Jinping, but they never cleaned up for you? Why did you have to wear a mask and they didn't have to wear a mask? Why didn't you get to bury your mom and they got to bury their moms? Why? Well, because Western governments are now run by people who think they're kings and queens and they're against you. Now, why are they so hostile to you? Why are they against you? And this isn't just Democrats, I should note. Republicans are all in on this too. You can check it out right now as Republicans are gathering together this week. You can't afford burger. You can't afford gas. You can't afford electricity. You can't afford food. And Republicans and Democrats are gathering as we speak. And they're discussing how critical it is that we fund the government. Fund the government? That's their discussion? So Democrats and Republicans, why are they actually against you? Why are Western governments against their citizens? Because you value things like freedom. In fact, you don't want the costs in your life to keep going up. So what do you want? You've probably already reached out to your rep. Hey, I don't want you to pass a CR. I don't want you to pass this bill that's going to fund the government. I'm worried about myself and my rent payment. And they're so annoyed by that. They're so aggravated by you. They are busy. The kings and queens, they've all gotten together. They're in one gigantic club, from the tech billionaires to the politicians to the media people to everyone else. They all get together. They all just strike all these business deals together, mostly with your money, exchanging money back and forth. And they've got this great thing going with parties and everything else and steak dinners and life is good. And they're so freaking aggravated by these peasants. They keep rising up and complaining about it. Of course they'll clean up the streets for a foreign commie piece of Chinese scum, but they won't clean up the streets for you. They care about him more than they care about you. He's lining all their pockets, the Chinese commies. You're not. What are you doing? You're not bribing these people the way China is. You're asking for them to work for you? It's so aggravating. These people, Republican and Democrat, they wake up day after day after day after day, and they are so aggravated by you and your desires and your wants. Why does the king have to bother with the desires of the peasants? And they're all like this. And don't think, well, it's just Democrats. No. Republicans passed trillion-dollar bill after trillion-dollar bill after trillion-dollar bill. Republican Congress passing it, Republican president signing off on it every single time. They did it under Trump. They did it under Bush. They did it under Obama. They did it under Clinton. They're doing it now under Joe Biden. They all do the same thing, crapping all over you and your money and your future constantly. And behind closed doors, my goodness, you do not even want to know the way these people get together and discuss you. You're not in charge, not in their minds. Remember, it's not just that you're a constituent, you are a peasant, and frankly, an annoyance. And I want to give a shout out to Senator Chris Coons, who I actually despise, because the way he conducted himself right here with a journalist who dared to ask him questions, I love it, because this just fits right under that overarching story about what these Western governments think about you.
Senator, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but when I call for a ceasefire in Gaza, I'm a journalist, name's Aaron Mate. When I call for a ceasefire in Gaza, you have 4,600 children killed.
This is
46.
A quiet car.
I know it's a quiet car, and I apologize for abuse, but I understand, but children are dying.
Sir, could I please have some help here?
Yes,
How
right
did you
now.
get this seat?
I bought the seat.
No. He's bothering me while
He's a
I'm trying to
senator,
do work.
and our government is paying for weapons that are murdering children in Gaza. I'm asking him when I call for a ceasefire.
Aaron,
Can you explain that?
please stop.
Because the
Please
fuel is
stop,
being cut
or
off.
I'm going to have you thrown off this train.
Does that
I'm a
give-
senator.
does that give us
This
the right
is
to
a
kill-
quiet car. You're breaking the basic rules of how we operate on Amtrak.
Okay, and the question
Please
is,
stop.
and I believe we're breaking international law
Okay.
by supporting
Thanks for
massacres
your
of
opinion.
civilians. Yes.
You've had a lot of my time. Please move on.
Why not at least
right.
call for a
I'm
ceasefire?
done.
I'm a senator. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of that reporter's line of questioning. You saw what they think. I'm a senator. That's how it goes. You're such an aggravation to these kings and queens who rule over us. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right.